can divulge a little bit of why this mechanics works without, boring people too much. But it's like when you can't borrow a stock to short it. I short a stock, right? And then I have to borrow it to short it. Well, you have to, at some point, cover the short. And what happens when you cover the short is you cover it because either it becomes too hard to borrow, right? Or because you've made money, or because it's gone up. Now, we take that concept and we bring it to gold, which is where it started. And I am a speculator who has no interest, who does not have the gold for delivery. I don't have it. Some do, some don't. And I short the contract, and the market goes up. And it comes to expiration, let's say on COMEX, and the person says, you know what? The long, who's usually the weaker hand in the relationship, the small hand, says, I think I want the gold. I want the gold now. And I say, as a short, I don't have it. I have to borrow it, like borrowing a short for a share. And that's where the lease rate starts to go up. Well, where's the gold? Oh, it's over in London. Let me borrow it. In gold in London to lease, it's all over the place. You can get it anywhere you want. It's 10 basis points. And then it's 50 basis points.
Let me follow this. So you're saying, I've sold you some gold I don't have. And suddenly next Tuesday, you're like, Chris, where's my bar? And I'm like, I'll be right back. And I have to go find a bar.
Right.
And somebody's willing to lease me that bar.
Absolutely.
And I can pay that. And the idea is that I pay a lease rate, and then some point in the future I give them a real bar back. But if it turns out we have a real shortage of bars out there and everybody's trying to do the same thing, you get a chart that looks like this. Did I get that right?
Yes, you got it right. In fact, that's if the EFP was the early canary in the gold mine, then this is like a flock of canaries. So to put a point on it, before I put the tinfoil hat on, gold leasing is a normal, necessary part of the business. Everyone knows that all the gold everywhere in the world is gettable at a price. It's not consumed, it's not eaten, it's not destroyed by some bug. All right? So, and silver somewhere in the middle. And so what happens is, I'm a jeweler and I need to buy gold, and a refiner says, I have the processed gold for you, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe there's a strike to get the gold to him. Maybe it's back in the days of South Africa, and the guy at the smelter, at the refiner in Switzerland says the delivery is 5 days late. And so what does the refiner do? He finds someone who has gold in a vault, and he says, I'm going to borrow your gold, I'm going to pay you interest on it, and I'm going to use that gold to give to the jeweler so he can make his jewelry. Right? So I get charged a lease rate. The jeweler in the normal business says, hey, I want the gold. And the smelter who's short to him says, well, I don't have it. Give me a second. Let me borrow it from someone. And so he borrows it from all the rich people in the world that have their gold there, and the central banks, and the BIS acting as agent for central banks. And he pays 10 cents or something like that, but he literally will take the gold and give it to the jeweler so he can use it. Now, he's got a 30-day contract with whoever he borrowed the gold from. Hey, I want my gold back there in 30 days. Right? So he pays the interest, 10 basis points, 20 basis points, annualized, it's like 1%. And in 30 days, he puts the gold back. Now, if he's an aggressive, evil speculator, he just keeps shorting the market and he keeps borrowing for delivery, betting that at some point the deliveries won't keep up. For every 10 contracts, I'm a bullion bank. If I know that for every 10 contracts that I sell, only one's going to want delivery, I'm going to short 10. And that one guy who wants delivery, I'm going to go borrow it. I don't need the gold. I'll borrow it from a Rothschild who's got gold in a vault over there. So that's the normal operation. It's actually necessary. It's part of the business. And here's where it gets strange, or this is what's happening. I'm this short-sighted seller, and it's no longer a jeweler, 1 out of 10 contracts. It's 9 out of 10 contracts, the guy says, hey, I actually want the gold this time. Well, what do you mean? You don't usually do that. It's statistical playing running into a sea change. And the sea change is somebody in the U.S. wants the gold. It's JP Morgan, it's Bank of America. China wants it, and they're pulling it out of the U.S., so U.S. needs to replenish it. It's just all going into China. It's like out of London into China, out of London into the U.S., out of the U.S. into China. But now it's staying in the U.S. So now you've got this guy who says, this is where the lease rates come in. The price hasn't gone up at all yet. I don't have to go in and cover my shorts in the futures to make delivery. I'll just borrow it from someone. Well, it's no longer 10 basis points. It's 1%. It's 2%. It's 5%, as the chart shows. Now, how does it get to 5%? In the good old-fashioned way, it gets to 5% because there's not enough gold available for lease. And what are the reasons that cause there to not be enough gold available to lease? Well, the first one is there just isn't enough. The second one is, and this is why the whole throttling and headline at Bloomberg is, frankly, a load of horse shit. If the gold is there, then it would trade. It would come out of the vault. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want to make $5 more on their gold? Do you want to lose money? Right? That's the point. If gold's not destroyed, you do that. So now you have this 5% lease, and you say, well, where's it coming from? Well, it's a combination of things. China wants their gold. There's less of a gold float. And then here's an academic thing that's very important. Basel III is going to get implemented in the U.S. in July. This could be our answer.
Tier 1 asset.
Right. In July of 2025, Basel III, which essentially reestablishes gold as a Tier 1 asset in Europe. It's a European rule, right? But it ends up becoming the global rule. If it's Tier 1 asset, then you can, if you have it in your presence, you can actually, let's say this is worth $2,900. I can get $2,900 for it from the Fed window. But we don't do that yet. But in July of this year, we're supposedly supposed to be implementing that. So you want to get your gold back before then, because you can now get it out of Europe and get it cash from the Fed window. So that's a reason to repatriate your gold. All right? So no one's really talking about that. There's only one other person out there who's mentioned it, who reminded me of it, and that's Eric Young. King Kong on X. But he and I were talking about it when it first started 18 months prior, and he's like, you know what? They're going to be implementing that in the U.S. I'm like, well, shit, I want to have my gold back in the U.S. for them. So there's no gold available for lease, right? China is buying all the gold that is available for lease, and the rate goes to 5%. What should happen now is the price of gold should go up. What's 5% of $2,800? It's 5% for 1 month. So I have a choice now. I'm short the gold. I can either spend 5% for the lease with no guarantee that the gold will come down in price, or I can go in and cover the gold. As people lose their faith in the LBMA's and the Bank of England's strength in keeping a lid on the price, it's trading $5 lower. As the collective faith of that industry in Europe is tested, they will say 5% for 30 days, that's $140 I'm paying. How much higher is gold? $5? Fuck it, buy it. So it's like I'm going to cover my short rather than pay the lease rate. And as the lease rate goes up, another thing will happen, and you would definitely appreciate this, I think. As the lease rate goes up, you can't go to the lessor and you can't say, you know what, I don't want to borrow for 30 days. I want to borrow for 1 year. And the guy says, oh, we don't want to do that. We want our gold back. You've got 10 days left. Where's our gold? It's like, well, how much to release it? Well, that's 10%. Now, mind you, the industry suffers greatly. The jeweler can't get his gold, but they're all, in one way or another, leaning on this free leasing gold forever. And the result is, if the pulling keeps coming to the U.S., if, for example, JP Morgan is pulling all of its leasable gold out of Europe, and I'm a European with gold there at the Bank of England, shit, I'm not going to let any of my gold leave the vault until the dust settles. And so we have a repatriation. I'm sorry, I've been speaking too much. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Well, I've so many thoughts come up because, all right, so here's a model I have in my head, right? And it's based on this. Again, sins of omission, commission. When I find something I can't find out, I get more curious, not less. So right now, I could probably Google up like easier to find plans for how to make a do-it-yourself nuclear bomb than I could to find out how much gold exists where. I keep trying. I scour bank reports. Finland has leased its gold, but to whom, under what terms? You know, I don't know, right? And so my view of this has always been that, you know, this should be simple. Here's a guy probably in the 50s. There's bars on a number.
That's a good title. I'm sorry. That's a good title.
Yeah. Back when people could still count that. Now they're like, it's so hard. How would we? Oh, we'd have to conduct an assay, and we don't know. It'd be so hard to figure out what is in Fort Knox. But to me, it should be pretty simple, right? If I go to GLD, they ought to have a spreadsheet with rows and columns with bar numbers on it, and those would be their assets. And you would know they're their assets because they have a number and their name on it, and it's held in a fully allocated account that has custodial title. I get the sense what you're saying is this is one big sort of fungible market that's been run kind of like the bank back in from It's a Wonderful Life, right? Fractional reserve lending of gold under the theory that everybody wouldn't want it all back at once. And it kind of feels like everybody kind of, for whatever reason, we can talk reasons next, wants their gold back all at once.
That's exactly what's happening. I mean, let me ask you, I mean, let's pretend that you and I are running the Bank of England or the LBMA. How could we not see this coming? We are in the hub. Like, how do we not prepare for this? Like, why are we not? Well, that's because this obfuscation and this lack and this opacity are a feature, not a bug. And they all think they're going to be bailed out by someone else. It's musical chairs for gold now. They're all golden chairs, and it's like, I've got mine, and you're waiting for the weak hand to be knocked out. But it's rather pathetic that an association that's supposed to be protecting the industry, whether it be the jeweler, the refiner, smelter, end user, investor, is not ready for this. Given with what happened during COVID, the same thing, a very similar thing happened during COVID, given what happened as you described in 2011, hard to borrow. How can they not be prepared for it? And that's because it's a feature, not a bug, that we don't know where the bars are. Because they have there's three shorts on every one contract.